I'm so happy to have Katie Coleman here tonight. She is a fantastic music director, pianist, arranger, and orchestrator who has worked all around the Bay Area and beyond. Here at City Lights, we were thrilled to have her as the music director for Cabaret and for LIZZIE, two of my favorite musicals we've done here. She's also worked on many shows elsewhere in the Bay Area, in the city, Hamilton, of course, and recently made her Broadway debut playing in Aladdin. So I'm super excited to have you here, Katie. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We have photos, we've got some videos, we've got some audio clips. Tonight we're going to talk about what life is like as a music director, the role of a music director, some of the highlights of Katie's career, shows that she's worked on, and she's also going to share some new orchestrations from the new show she's been working on coming soon, which opens at Z Gallery in San Francisco later this month. So before we dive in, let's talk about your music background. Katie, tell us a little bit about your background. What brought you to theater? What brought you to music?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I just have to say I'm normally behind the stage and not part of the audience. So don't mind me. Okay. Well, so I've played music my whole life. It came really naturally to me. I started taking piano lessons when I was 6. And then I played violin in junior high, and then I played trumpet in high school, and it just kind of was my thing. I also really loved theater from a young age. My parents would take my brother and I to shows in San Francisco, and we just grew up watching theater. And then I was in shows as a kid, and I studied music management at University of the Pacific Conservatory of Music. And I was still playing piano and trumpet, but there wasn't a theater component to that at all. But it was basically like a music major with a business minor, essentially. And at the time, I knew I wanted to be a part of big productions of some sort, collaborating with other people and working on something that was bigger than myself. But I didn't really know what that was. And after college, I was working at San Jose Repertory Theater, actually in the development department. I just was like, oh, I got a job in theater. I love theater. But I kept sneaking down into the rehearsal room because I just really wanted to be there. And I started playing shows. I knew a few people in my community that worked at some children's theaters locally. And so I just said, hey, I think I want to, or like I play piano. How do I get involved in theater? And then like, as soon as people found out that I played piano and wanted to do musical theater, it just like the jobs just started pouring in. And these were, volunteer jobs or community theater, stipend. It wasn't money making at the time, but I just got so much work. And then I quit my job at San Jose Rep and did music full time for 15 years. Yeah, that's kind of the background.
That's amazing. I'm sure they were sorry to lose you out of development, though. Like development is so, I love that you have a development background. It's so interesting that
yeah. It was a lot of writing thank you letters.
Yeah, that work is priceless.
Yes.
That's awesome. I didn't know you played the trumpet.
Yeah, I played the trumpet. So my parents are here tonight, but I have an older brother and he was in marching band and he really loved it. So my parents said, you will really love marching band too. So you have to learn an instrument so that you can be in marching band. So I picked up the trumpet in 8th grade so that I could be in marching band in high school. And I did love it. They were absolutely right.
And then I got to use trumpet in theater.
Yeah. So I played trumpet in college. That was actually my principal instrument in college. I did play some piano there too. And then when I first got started, I was doing both piano and trumpet, kind of alternating whatever people needed me for. But it became pretty clear that people needed piano players more than trumpet players. But I still occasionally play in a ska band up here in San Francisco. So I do play my trumpet from time to time.
I used to love this ska band called the Crazy Eights in Portland. I don't think they're still around, but
yeah. Ska is really fun.
Ska is fun. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, so Katie and I have worked together a long time. We were actually talking about we did a show together back in 2006. We did MAME. And then I remember Katie playing as audition pianist when I've had some of my really bad auditions, but she always smiles and you feel better. So it's all good. Well, one of the things that Katie and I worked on together was the show LIZZIE at City Lights in 2017. Fantastic rock musical about Lizzie Borden. Sounds weird, but it's such a fantastic show. And during that time, I interviewed Katie about the role of the music director. It's about a minute and a half video, and I'm going to play it right now because it gives a good background about music directing. For some reason tonight, my spotlight button is not working. Oh, it came back. Yay, spotlight button. All right, check out this video with Katie.
I'm Katie Coleman, and I am the music director of LIZZIE here at City Lights Theater Company. So during performances of the show, you'll see me on stage leading the band from the keyboard. But as music director, my role is actually a lot bigger than that. I'm part of the process from the very beginning. I work with the director to help cast the show. And then in the beginning of rehearsals, we work on vocals. And then I play rehearsal piano throughout the process. I hire and rehearse the band. And then throughout the rest of the rehearsal process, I work really closely with the director and the choreographer on all of the musical moments of the show, which there are a lot because this is music almost the whole time. I'm playing the keyboard, which is pretty heavily programmed. Sometimes it sounds like a grand piano, and sometimes it sounds like strings or flutes or electric guitar. And then we have a guitar player who actually has 3 different guitars, 2 different kinds of electrics, and an acoustic guitar. And then the cello player also plays the chimes, which is one of my favorite moments in the show, as well as tambourine and finger cymbals. The bass player is playing a 5-string bass, so that gives us an extra low string to get some of those really low notes. And then the drummer we actually have on electronic drums, which allows for us to control the sound a little bit better. And then in the drum book, it actually specifies for the drummer to create an instrument that's a birdcage noisemaker instrument. And she actually found a birdcage in her garage and created this really fantastic instrument that's really fun. So this production of LIZZIE has been one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in theater because we have an amazing cast, a really fantastic team that worked really, really hard, and it's a show that I absolutely love. So I really hope that you can come see it.
Ooh, I love that show.
Yeah.
Love that show so much. I had forgotten about that birdcage instrument. What does it say in the music? Does it actually say like drummer makes up own instrument?
Yeah, just like a noise making birdcage instrument. So again.
The other thing that's wonderful about that show, that I love that the chimes, there's that moment. Is it just the closing number when the chimes come in, that last song?
I think
I
it's
remember.
maybe one other moment, but I love the chimes so
Oh,
much.
beautiful.
And ever since
Yeah.
Ever since I did it in that show, I've tried to sneak chimes into every show that I ever do because they're the best. They just have such a theatrical sound.
Thank you. For people here who haven't seen the show, tell us a little bit about the music in LIZZIE and what this was your first show at City Lights, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
what drew you to LIZZIE, and tell us about the music?
well, I think that to this day, that is my favorite show I've ever worked on. I just love that show so much. I loved working at City Lights. I loved working with Lisa and George and the band. It was just so great. But it's basically 4 women on stage and a rock band behind them, and we were visible from the audience. I think that show also really inspired me to get more into orchestrating for like rock shows, because I remember being really impressed by what I would call the orchestrations. And what I mean is like the details that are asked of the instrumentalists, like the very specific guitar lines and like the birdcage thing. Is like the music was just very intentionally written. And for a rock show, you don't usually see that. And it like makes you really respect the music. You're like, oh, they want me to play exactly this. Then it's just intentional. It creates an awesome sound. Yeah, it was just such a fun show. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, and it's got such a 90s feel, the music.
Oh yeah, you can tell that they picked very specific genres and styles to show off the sound of each number. It was so fun.
I see Chalista saying in the chat, right, girl, did you know
Yes.
Freya is here tonight? Hello.
Freya played Lizzie at a different production of Lizzie, but I know she's a fellow fan.
So happy you're here tonight.
Hi, I'm here for Katie because I love her.
And Freya's been on our show a couple of times, and she's a wonderful musician too. We're going to talk about Cabaret in a minute, and she was in the band for Cabaret. Woo! And I know you both have such nice things to say about City Lights, which is always good. I was going to say something about the '90s field music. I can't remember who their musical influences were. They had talked about that the composers were really cool, and they talked about. I'm blanking now. Do you remember, Katie, who their music was influenced by?
I don't remember, but you're
It
right.
good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
4 women with these powerhouse voices, and it was just great.
It was.
So I can't believe that you've only done 2 shows at City Lights, because again, I feel like I've known you forever. But the other one I wanted to talk about was Cabaret, and I've got a couple of pictures here. Now here is Katie playing in the band, and here is the whole Cabaret band, and there's our cellista right there. Just so cool. Hotties, that's right. Katie, you had mentioned that you worked on orchestrations for both of those musicals as well, and part of it was to tailor to City Light's particular budget. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah. So yeah, you had identified me as an orchestrator, and most of what I did initially in that field was reducing orchestrations. And Cabaret is a great example of that. I actually looked up what the original orchestration for that show is, and it's a piano player, an accordion player, 5 string players, 4 woodwind players, 5 brass players, guitar, bass, drums, and then in addition, they have an onstage band that's a saxophone, trombone, another piano, and another drum set. So obviously that would take up the whole City Light stage.
Yes.
A lot of money. So for our production, we just had 4 of us. So I was on piano, and then I had 2 assistant music directors who filled in because I think I was playing Hamilton at the time, so I couldn't do all the performances. So I had Amanda Koo and then Sarah, whose last name I'm forgetting at the moment, but they played piano and music directed or conducted the band when I was gone. And then Pauline Sampson was on woodwind, Freya was on cello, and Brietta Greger was on drums. So we just had the 4 of us. So I had to figure out a way to get all 20 something parts to be played by us. And a lot of that was inspired by the onstage band, because we were on stage too. So it was like, these are what you want to hear. And we were going for a very acoustic feel, which makes sense in that space. And so I kind of just I literally do this like cutting and pasting paper. So I take all the woodwind books, spread them out on the floor or the kitchen table. And I'm like, okay, so the flute part is really important for these 8 bars. And then the clarinet part's really important for these 16 bars. And then I make copies of those, cut them out and tape them into one part. And then at times you have to transpose it, because if someone's starting a phrase on flute and then it's taken over by clarinet, those 2 instruments are in different keys. So then I would have to adjust so that it could be played on one instrument without them having to switch. So that was how I did a lot of orchestrating at first. Yeah, it's a big job, but when you have really good musicians like I did, you can throw a lot at them at the last minute, or I could even hand them maybe like a full score and say, okay, play this, this, and this, or, oh, hey, can you cover this solo here? We can kind of work on it together, but it's a big job.
Yeah. And as you said, it's not like we've got a huge space at City Lights. We don't have an orchestra pit. We wouldn't have room to put all these musicians, so it would be a challenge. So we kind of have our own sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who are watching later on YouTube and can't see the chat, I want to read a nice comment here. Chalista wrote, Katie is an adept orchestrator whose prowess at reduction is unsurpassed. From Sweeney Todd to Cabaret, she knows her shit. No one else can do it. She understands what instruments are able to do and can, as a musician herself, cover a huge array of parts. To the audience, they'd never know the amount of work that goes into this. Katie is a treasure. Agreed. Agreed.
Wow, that's very nice. Yeah, it is rare for a music director to have an instrumental music background, and I do think that's something that's unique about me. So oftentimes people get into theater because they are actors or they're piano players primarily, and or they're singers. but I was actually like an instrumentalist. So I understand because I played violin and trumpet, and I was in jazz band and orchestras and concert bands growing up my whole life. So I understand what it's like to play all those instruments, and I can speak to all of those instruments. And that has really kind of allowed me to carve a niche out for myself in that way.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know a lot of this. And that's one of the things I like about this particular series is I like highlighting our artists who our audiences might not necessarily see or know. There's so much that goes into every production. It's not just the actors you see on stage. It's not just the costumes you see. I mean, like there's so much that's woven into this, which is very cool. Which leads me to something I wanted to bring up about Cabaret, which our director, Kit Wilder, made an interesting choice, and that was to have the band have its own curtain call. You guys got to come out and take your own curtain call, and that doesn't usually happen. What was that like?
It was fun. So by that point in my career, I think I was much more comfortable with that kind of thing. As I was telling you before we started, that I have had, there's a few shows that I've done where the music director is required to be on stage, it's to be a character, maybe be in costume. And at first, when I was first starting theater, I would have never, like, was not interested in that at all. But as I did more and more shows, I got more comfortable being on stage, and being in costume is pretty fun. One of my biggest roles as music director was I was Larry in Title of Show at Los Altos Stage Company. And so that's just 4 actors and a piano player. And it's based on like these original 4 actors that wrote this show. And then the pianist's name is Larry. So I played Larry, and I had like 20 lines in that show. And one thing I had to do, I had to like storm off the stage at one point because Larry's upset that he's not involved in a photo shoot. So I like had to get really mad at the cast and like walk off stage, make a big exit, and then later on make a big entrance. And so by that point, I'd been doing shows for 10 years or so, and I felt good about it. And then LIZZIE, we were on stage in costume and lit. So by that point, it made sense to take a bow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so deserved. I think somebody said something about that on Facebook today. Like, why don't you get, I mean, the actors do this sort of call out on stage, right? And everybody applauds, but it's not the same. Let's just be in those amazing costumes too, because look at you. You look amazing. Of course you take a bow.
Yeah.
So as I said, you've only worked on 2 shows at City Lights so far, but I know everyone in the City Lights world would love to have you back again. But you were very busy. You are from, so you're from Mountain View, right?
Yep.
But you live in New York.
This is true. I do.
So it's harder to get you back.
Well, and right now I'm in San Francisco, so it's all very confusing, but that's life.
Well, you've worked all over the place. Let's talk a little bit more about some of your other career highlights. You gave me some photos. Gosh, the first one I want to do is just show from your Broadway debut, Aladdin.
Yay.
Aladdin. And it was obviously cold. You said it was December, I think.
It was, yeah, it was cold.
What are we seeing here in this other picture?
Okay. So on the left, so this is something that I had never seen before, but is in the Aladdin pit, is videos of the stage, monitors of the stage. Normally the conductor has a monitor of the stage, but not normally the musicians. But for this one, I do. So that's taken from my seat. And yeah, the computer at the bottom that says 19-measure 65, that's the keyboard programming computer. And then you can kind of see a stand light. So that's just right above my keyboard. I have a monitor of the stage so I can watch it. But that particular night, they had just reopened after being closed for COVID cases in the cast. They had something like 60 cases in the company in December of, yeah, it was a lot. So we shut down for several weeks. And so I was supposed to make my debut earlier, and then it got canceled. And yeah, but so this was one of the first nights back, and they were just, after curtain call, they thanked the audience, and they sang New York, New York, celebrating how great New York is. And they were telling the audience to take a selfie. So they said, take out your cell phones, take a selfie of us, like turn around and take this. So they all crowded together and took a photo. So I don't normally have my phone out in a way that I can take pictures in the middle of this first Broadway show that I'm playing, but I did then. So that's that picture. And then the other picture is just me taking a selfie in front of the marquee because I wanted to post about my debut. And so I was like, well, I need a picture, and took that one.
As well, you should.
Yeah.
I jumped around in time a little bit. We'll go back to some of your San Francisco shows, but I think you said Aladdin. Was that your first show back after COVID shutdown?
Yeah, I know. I was trying to remember that too. I had played a couple performances of Elf out on Long Island, just subbed on that also around that same time. But basically I went from Hamilton and San Francisco getting shut down in March of 2020 to then making my Broadway debut in December of 2021. So almost a year or over a year and a half of not playing any shows.
Hmm. And then to come back and be your Broadway debut.
Yeah. Yeah. That was unexpected too, but it happened and they asked me back. So.
How did it happen? How did you get connected with that show?
So that show has a music director and 2 associate music directors. And one of the associate music directors is Jamie Schmidt, who was the conductor of the Lion King tour for many years. And it came through San Francisco when I was still living out here. I believe it was 2016 maybe, and I played keyboard for him and got to know him. I just was kind of networking, and after the show one night the orchestra went out for drinks, so I was talking to him about my career, and he's so friendly. And then during the shutdown I moved back to New York in November of 2020, and he and I had kind of stayed in touch. So we met up a couple times, and I was not expecting this at all, but he was telling me about Aladdin and what it was like to shut down that show. And I told him about Hamilton, and we just, we took a walk in Central Park, and then we did it again a few months later. And 10 minutes into the walk, he said, "How do you feel about making your Broadway debut?" So that was that. And then, but of course it's a little bit different for people in the orchestra, because like a cast member, when you're in a Broadway show or a tour, you sign a contract, you audition, you get the role, you sign a contract, you know how long you're going to do it, you have rehearsals, you have a put-in rehearsal with the cast. But for the orchestra, the first time you do it, if you're a sub, in my case, so if you're in the original orchestra, you're there from the beginning, you get rehearsals, but they have a ton of subs for a Broadway show. That this is like, they've been running for 8 years now. So there's a lot of people that play that know all of the orchestra books. And so the first time I played it was my Broadway debut. I didn't get a rehearsal. Basically you learn the show, and then they put you in the chair and they're like, okay, let's see if you can do it. So that's another reason why I didn't really announce that I was doing it, is because I wanted to wait to see if I was going to be asked back. And, I wasn't too worried about that happening, but you never know. There is you have to prove yourself. So, luckily it, it went well, and been doing it about once a week since.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So exciting. It's too bad you couldn't be doing it when James Monroe Iglehart was in.
I know. That would have been so fun.
We love him.
Yeah.
Very cool. You also sent me some photos of some of the shows that you've done in the city, in San Francisco, I mean. And I'm going to pull up some ones from Hamilton. So this is, let me spotlight myself here. This is from Hamilton in San Francisco. And this is also Hamilton in San Francisco.
Yeah.
You wanted to tell me a little bit about this rehearsal shot.
Yeah. So that one on the left there. So I had 3 jobs at Hamilton. I was part of the music team, which involves 5 pianists. And I was one of them. And so that involved playing keyboard 2 for some performances, and then playing rehearsal piano. And each of us kind of take on a certain group of the cast. So mine was the swings. So we rehearsed all of the swing tracks. So the swings they're understudies who have to learn multiple tracks of the show. And there's 6 of them. I think they're all in this picture. So this is one of them, the one that's being held up. This was her first time learning the show. So they were all in the room. We would rehearse a couple times a week. They teach her the show just like this. So the whole cast isn't there. It's like the the other swings and the dance captains just kind of act as everyone else in the cast. And then they say, okay, well, there's going to be someone to your right here and someone to your left here. And we all do our best to kind of recreate the show. So that's a picture of that. And then a fun fact about Hamilton rehearsal pianists is that we actually have to rap and play at the same time. So it's our, yeah, it's the responsibility of the pianist to be the person in the room that covers the vocals that are not happening in the rehearsal. And especially because I was doing the swings, so that means they're all ensemble tracks. And so none of them are the leads. So there's no one in the room. There's no one standing in for Hamilton. There's no one standing in for Burr or Eliza. They're just doing their ensemble tracks. So it's the job of the pianist to do the rapping of Hamilton, of Eliza, like of all of the characters.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And I had to audition rapping and playing too in order to get the job. And I got the job, which is baffling to me still.
Yay!
Yeah, so you can kind of see the sheet music there at the bottom of the picture. You can see it's got the vocals at the top and then a lot of really hard piano music underneath.
Oh my Lord. Okay, I gotta turn this off so you can see my face because I'm just kind of wow. Hang on, I hit the wrong button. I got so excited I hit the wrong button. Ah. Okay, so you told me that you had a video of you rapping and I realized that it was an audition video. Good Lord. How do you do that? How do you do all the words and all the notes and all the same time? Oh,
It was quite a lesson in learning. Like I had so much music that I had to learn in a certain amount of time. And I was like, okay, how do I get this in my brain? Like, I remember even Googling like how to learn or like how to memorize, like, how do I do this better? But I basically had to get one of them in muscle memory. So I would try to get in lyrics. You can kind of do that. It's like, a song that you've known forever. Your mouth says the words and you don't even remember what you're saying. So that's what I tried to do. And I remember I would sit on the train and I would listen to it and stare at the lyrics, just to like get it and kind of say them so that was in the back of my head, because the piano part is also really, really hard.
yeah.
So it's just that I still to this day don't really know how I did it. And another funny thing about Hamilton rehearsal pianos, we actually have to like sing the drum part. So sometimes there's like a drum fill into a song. So instead of counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, or I find myself now, like for this show that I'm working on, saying drums 2, 3, 4 when it's just drums. But for that show, we would have to like drum speak. So we'd have to say like chaka, chaka, diggity, diggity, like in the rehearsal room, or for the little record scratches, we would have to be like waka waka. It's silly, but
Okay, you've got a one-woman show going there.
it is a good party trick, actually.
And of course, Lauren says in the chat, man, I wish I could have been in the room where it happened. Yes, of course. Don't we all, Lauren? Okay, so my nightmare, I'm a singer. My nightmare is dance auditions, but I think you just upped that nightmare.
Yeah. Well, it's also a video audition too. So you watch yourself doing that and you just like, you're never happy with the results. And so I took those videos so many times and I don't know, I did it, I guess. And they do exist, but it maybe 10 years from now, I will release them to be seen by people.
Do you have a favorite song in Hamilton that you absolutely love playing?
Oh, I think Skylar Sisters was probably the most fun to play.
Yeah, yeah. Not surprised.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, before we move on to talking about your show that you're working on now, I always ask artists this, and I didn't do that. What's a show, if you could play any show next, like what are some of the dream ones that you haven't done?
Oh, wow. Well, so my two favorite ones that I have done is Lizzie and then Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which I did at San Jose Stage. And that was
nice.
where it was a rock band and we were on stage. It was so fun. So I think 6 would be really fun to play because it's kind of a similar thing where it's like an all female rock band. Yeah, that might have to be my answer. I also love Come From Away. That's one of my all-time favorite musicals. And again, the band is on stage, and they have a female music director, I believe, too. So that's another one that's on my wish list.
Very nice. Very nice. Anna's saying maybe someday at City Lights. I would love for us to do that, both of those. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Well, you are back here. Oh, I've got a question from Freya here. And anyone, if you've got questions at any time, feel free to type them into the chat. Also, after we talk about Katie's current show, we'll open it up to a little bit more open questions. So feel free. Freya wants to know, Katie, do you have your own musicals you have written that should be out there?
She might know. She might be asking. I maybe have a few ideas.
Someone's putting you on the spot. I know nothing.
We're going to talk about the show that I'm knee deep in right now, that I'm very involved in, and that's the one that's taking over at the moment.
Gotcha. Well, tell us about it. So this is what brought you back to the West Coast. What are you working on right now?
Yeah, so it's a brand new show. It's called Coming Soon, and it is written by singer-songwriter Rachel Lark. And I am the music director and orchestrator, arranger. So she asked me, she's been writing this show for about 5 years now, and she initially reached out actually when I was out here playing Hamilton, and because they were trying to go on tour with the show, but I was busy and I had to say no. But that was just a few months before the COVID shutdown. So in like April of 2020, she said, "Hey, I bet you're not busy right now." And she was right. So the plan at that time was to make an album, kind of like a demo album of 10 songs from the show. So there's 15 songs in the show right now, but we decided to just record 10 of them with full band, full vocals. And we were going to do it in August of 2020, and we did it, so that was like the first thing that I did after being quarantined for months. It was the first time being in a room with other people, and we were not in the same room together until the first day of recording. So we had several cast members and a 5-piece band, and I just kind of like talked them through the songs over Zoom. So we're going to get to this, but they had done a very simple demo several months before. And so she sent me that. She sent me very rough charts and very rough recordings of this demo that they had done. And she's like, "Okay, here you go. Here's the music." So I, from that, created all the band parts, and I wrote backup vocals, created sheet music for all of this, and did the arranging and the orchestrating for it. And then we went in and we recorded 10 songs in 10 days in this recording studio. We actually were ahead of schedule. On day 7, I think we brought in a cellist just to play like this one solo, just like 16 bars of one number. But it was so great and I was like, I could write string parts for a few more songs. So we decided to hire string players like on day 7, and I wrote string parts for 7 songs in like 2 days. And then we did strings, the recording. And so that album, it's called Coming Soon, the Pandemic LP. It is actually on Pandora and Spotify. Right now we've taken it down just because we're preparing for the production out here, but it'll be back there. So that was my initial involvement. And then now we're doing an actual full-scale production this month.
Fantastic. And that's at Z Space in San Francisco.
Yep.
Great. What's the first performance date? It's the 21st, I think?
22nd is the preview, and then we open on, or no, 22nd is opening. That's right.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the fun part. What's the show about? Okay. I'm going to make you tell it.
I'm going to tell the PG version, just in case there's kiddos around. But so it's about a couple that's been together for 8 years, a young couple, and Mark proposes to Maggie. One day he surprises her with a proposal, and she confesses that she's been faking it for all 8 years. So he's very shocked by this news, and then she goes on a journey to discover what it is that she likes, and then brings that information back to him. And then they see where that takes. I don't want to ruin it, but so it's It's a journey about relationships and self-exploration and empowerment. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. Yeah. You told that better than I would have. When we talked about this, it's like, you know what? We're a grown-up theater here. It's all good.
I've had a few run-ins with people where I have to figure out the right way to say it.
Exactly. It was like us trying to market the show Stupid Effing Bird, and it's not effing, it's the full word. So
Exactly.
you gave me some music clips. I've got 2 clips from now I can't see the whole title of the song. Oh my goodness. Tell me the full title of the 20 song. 20
Oh,
minutes.
20 minutes of what?
20 minutes of what? Okay, so set this up for everybody. We've got the 2 clips here that you sent. Let's see what we're gonna hear.
Okay, so this song was like my baby on the album because it's the most rock song of all of them. And so I really like when I heard it on the demo, I knew exactly what it could sound like. And it's very similar to a lot of the songs in LIZZIE, actually. And there was a lot of direct inspiration pulled from that show. So I sent you the reference demo so that you could hear what I was given, which you'll hear it's just a very basic band arrangement. Like basically they had chords and they just kind of were strumming along playing these chords. And then I didn't want to give too much of that because it's like not a public performance, but I did want you guys to hear what I took. And then I also gave you the chart that they gave me. So there's not even any lyrics, there's not even a melody line, there's just chords. So that's what I was given. And then what I turned it into, we'll listen to the album version, as well as I think you have a page of the sheet music that I then created from that.
I do. So we've got little audio clips. It's kind of the before and after.
Yeah.
So here's the before.
Touch me then.
Everybody hear that okay? Sound okay? Great. All right. So there's the before, and then here's the after.
Touch me then.
Big difference. Tell us about what you added in.
Yeah, and I hope everyone gets a chance to hear the full track because it just keeps getting better and better. Well, so the very first thing you hear in the after version is the guitar feedback, and that was inspired by LIZZIE. That is something that they use intentionally to create tension in the music. So I pulled that from there. And then there's a lead guitar solo that's kind of on top, and then you also hear a distorted second guitar rhythm underneath and piano. So I created like the lead guitar lines and then told the band what to play. As the song goes on, there's kind of, even though it's just a fairly simple rock groove, there's melodic lines like even in the bass and the guitar that create like a counter melody to what the singers are doing. And then a fun story about this song. So for this album, the Pandemic LP, I had written backup vocals, but we just didn't get, because we had 5 people that were recording, but it's a duet. It's just a duet between Mark and Maggie. And then I had written backup vocals, but we just didn't get around to it. But since we're doing this production here, I was like, oh, well, I have these backup vocals that I wrote. Like I've never heard them before, but let's try them. And we tried them in rehearsal last week and they sounded so good. And everyone was so excited. And it was probably one of the best moments of my life. Honestly, it was so crazy to think I had, in the middle of quarantine, not around anybody, I wrote these backup vocals and I just thought they would probably sound good. And then they got put away on the shelf and then I got to pull them out. And when we put it together, it was just so cool to hear them. So I hope everyone can come see the show and hear that song and hear those backup vocals. And I'm very proud of that.
That's beautiful. That's a metaphor of rebirth of the theater, isn't it?
Yeah.
I got goosebumps.
Good.
Anne asked, how long does it run? And I realized I got to look that up. I don't have the link, but it is Z Gallery and the show is coming soon. I'll grab that in a minute. But we also have another music clip, and this one is Trying Hard to Be Hot. Yep.
Yeah.
Tell us about this song.
Okay. Well, this is a fight between the couple. So, and it's a very theatery song where it's like there's a lot of action that happens in the middle of the song, and it's a lot of talking and arguing. So for this one, I'm not sure how much you're gonna play of it, but I wrote the piano part, I played the piano part, so I'm also playing on the album. And I added in the movement in the band, the bass line, the guitar, kind of similar to what I was saying about the other one. And I wrote the string arrangements, including some little solos throughout, which are really fun, and just kind of figured out ways to bulk up the orchestration to give it more power. There's one section where Maggie is really confessing what she wants, and it's just full on rock underneath that. And so that was pretty fun to create. So that's this song.
Yeah. I grabbed the link to the show and I put it in the chat. I believe it's until the 30th.
Yeah, it's not a long run. So
Yeah, April 21st through the 30th in Z Space in San Francisco. So there you go. For this song, Trying Hard to Be Hot, I pulled about a minute of it.
Great.
So
Cool.
here we go.
Oh, look, you finally come home. I'm sick of working on your weird dick hang-ups and on what they mean. My dick's not weird. Yeah, sure, seems pretty weird to me. I'm doing everything I can and all you want is me faking. No, I want to feel like I might be important. You're entitled to some love, sure, who isn't? Performance, not love. You want a show, you want me on my back. Is that so wrong? It's not me, don't you get it? It's an act. Well, play along, I know I have. Don't you dare try to blame me for what you saw that. Yes, you did, just admit. I don't just do what you do. I want much more than your weird dick can't even start to comprehend. We're going nowhere, we're going nowhere. Maybe we should just break up. You're so disappointing. Well, you are annoying. Maybe we should just break up. I'm so sick of your shit. We've done all this work. What can we show for it? I'm done with you.
It really builds, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little hard to hear in there, but you could kind of hear the strings and the movement in the bass line. But yeah, that's one of my favorite songs in the show. Oh, and that's also Sean O'Conowitz singing, and he has been in a couple.
Oh,
Yeah, he's been in a couple City Lights shows.
I didn't realize.
Played Mark in our album.
Really? Okay, so Sean O'Conowitz is, oh my goodness, he was in West Side Story and Other Desert Cities, Tigers Be Still. What am I forgetting, Anne? American Idiot, Green Day's American Idiot. Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's terrific. Oh, he's got a great voice.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh, and you also gave me an image of some of the sheet music. Let me
Okay, yeah.
this. So tell us what this is. This is a comparison of the before and after. Tell us what we're seeing.
Yeah, so on the left, that's the chart that they gave me to work with. So they said, here's the song, no lyrics. There's kind of a melody line in there a little bit, but it's mostly like chords, and then it says things like verse, chorus. So then and that was, everyone in the band got that exact thing for their initial demo. And then on the right, which there's like probably 40 more pages.
Yeah, I just put the one.
So what fits on one page on the left, it takes up a lot more pages when you actually really write it out the way that. So one thing about writing out the sheet music and doing like what's called copyist work is anytime you do a show that's been on Broadway, which most shows that we do have at some point been on Broadway, you're looking at the sheet music that people played on Broadway. So it's like professionally created sheet music. And that's what I'm used to looking at. Even when I played community theater or high school theater, it's like Broadway sheet music. So I can't help myself but create sheet music that's like to that standard, because that's what I'm used to looking at. So on the right is what I created from it. And that's only the first 8 bars, but I have a program on my computer that I type it all up in, and then you can actually play back too, so you can hear kind of roughly what you're what you're typing in. But yeah, that's what that is.
Very interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So as I said, I dropped that link in the chat, April 21st through the 30th, if you'd like to see it. Folks, if anyone would like to ask questions, now is a great time. Feel free to, oh my goodness, a huge question just popped up. Here's a good one. All right. You ready, Katie? This is a long one.
I'm ready.
I'm going to read this out again for folks who are watching on YouTube. What are the challenges versus benefits of building a production from scratch as a music director, as you're doing now, as opposed to coming on board and interpreting something more established or known? Oh my God, this is a long question. Do you have a preference, or do you take a greater sense of satisfaction from being part of a legacy show dynasty where there's popular recognizability, like Hamilton or Aladdin, or to say you were an original architect of a new production? Go.
Okay. Well, both are very satisfying in their own ways. As I've said, LIZZIE was one of my favorite musical experiences ever, and that was an existing show. But I think one of the reasons why I really love that one is because I really felt ownership over making it like our version of that. And it was still a new show in the world. It had not been on Broadway, so people didn't know it. And I think what originally got me into theater was that I'm a good sight reader. So you can put music in front of me and I can play it. And for a long time, I didn't really even I didn't call myself an artist. Like I didn't think I was creating anything. I was just playing what other people had created. And I was happy doing that. But over the years, I got to learn what makes music and theater good. And so I think now where I am in my career, I'm ready for this role that I have for this show, because I know what theater music sounds like. I know what it looks like. I know what makes a good musical. So I really enjoy both. I do have to say I enjoy music directing more than being just like a rehearsal pianist or even a performance pianist. That's, you're sitting like playing, like, so the people who are playing Aladdin on Broadway, that's been running, before at half hour, they say, welcome to performance number 7,032 of Aladdin. So the people in that orchestra have been playing that show for 7,000 performances or some crazy number like that. So they're literally playing the same exact music every night for 8 shows a week. And you're not creative in that role, but it's a great job to have. It's really a great job to have. So I'm so grateful to have been given opportunities to be on those shows, and I will always want to be on those shows, because writing a brand new musical is one of the most challenging things that I think anyone can do on this planet. So, and it's a rare opportunity to even get to the point of building out a production of it. So I don't take this opportunity for granted at all. And it is extremely fulfilling. And it is also very challenging. We have no idea what these songs look like when they're put on their feet. And like I said, I didn't know what the backup vocals sounded like until I heard them for the first time. There's no proof of concept of this show except for like the demo that they've done or the workshop that they've done. So we get to create it, but it's a hard thing to do too, because you spend a lot of time on stuff that just gets cut. So like today we just cut half of a few numbers because we did our first run through on Saturday. So now it's like all these pages of sheet music and all these fun things that I came up with, they're cut. But that's true for the writer as well. It's true for the director who staged it and the choreographer. It's just the way that it goes. And, I'll probably have to write that many more pages next week because we're adding transition music and we're figuring out what's going to be the bows music. So they're both very rewarding. And I just feel grateful to be working in this field at all, especially after after having it disappear for 2 years. But I hope I answered your question, Brian.
Brian, yeah, I saw the initials. So there we go, Brian. Great question. Anybody else have questions for Katie? Hi, Freya.
Hey. Can I be a fangirl for Katie? She's gonna
Please do.
sick of me already, but that sucks for her. So I just testimony to how wonderful she is. So Katie has helped me in so many ways. So first, the whole reason I chose to do Sweeney Todd was because she walked in the room at San Jose Stage, and that's when I knew I needed to be a part of the production. And then from there, we really, I think, had a great friendship that came from there. And that whole time I watched her do these incredible orchestrations, these incredible reductions that no one else would ever take on. And she did it almost thanklessly, just pure love. So go, Katie. You work so hard. But then from there, I expressed some interest in performing in a production of Cabaret. And so when that came around, she actually remembered and brought me on. And from there, I met so many wonderful people and friends. Like, so Brietta, who was the percussionist in Cabaret, ended up playing percussion on my operetta, Pariah. And it's really kind of due to Katie and the way she teams people up when she puts her musicians together. And not to mention also, this is just Katie Love Fest. She helped rehearse me for a very cool production called Hear Her Song, where the music director was Kurt Crowley of Hamilton. And so I was a ball of nerves. She rehearsed me, God, probably 5 or 6 times. And also for Christine Ebersole, you rehearsed me for that gig as well. So she's the backbone of a lot of people's lives creatively in the city. So thank you, Katie. That's all I've got.
Beautiful. Yeah, I met you for the first time during Cabaret.
Yeah, that's right. We were the all-chick band.
Ah, that was good stuff.
Yeah.
Somewhere have a little piece of video of Kit, our director, actually creating the curtain call and like trying to usher you all to take your curtain call. And not all of you looked thrilled to do it.
I love that stuff, and it was so exciting for me. I feel like musicians are just as much a part of the production as the actors. So
Absolutely.
exciting.
Yeah, and for those of you who didn't see Cabaret, another thing that was cool about it was the way our set designer, Ron Gasparnetti, set it all up. So we had these special table seats down in front of the regular audience, so people felt like they were actually in the cabaret, and like the Kit Kat girls went around and interacted with them, and just the whole theater was transformed. It was a very immersive space.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions or thoughts? Oh, Lauren says Cabaret was stunning. Thank you, Lauren. That was a fantastic show. That was in 2019, which seems like a million years ago now. But yeah. I grabbed a video clip that I don't know if Katie's ever seen, and it's a few snippets of LIZZIE rehearsal. I never put it out publicly, but this seems like a good time. You want to see it?
Sure.
There's some crazy shit in the house of order. I know that you're in my heart and everything is fine. Oh, Lizzie, take me to your hiding place and I'll take you to that in my heart I always knew. Father married Mrs. Gordon after our mother died, and she's in it for the money. She's in for a big surprise with no personal objection, but she can't have what's ours. Fair is fair in the house of Gordon. This is not love. This is not love. I don't know what it is, but I want out of it. I love you too, Father.
Oh, such gorgeous music.
Yeah. Watching that, it reminds me of the challenges of playing rehearsal piano for a show like that, because it's performed to this rock band, and I was just on the upright piano at City Lights, so who knows how old that piano is, how many times it's been wheeled around the space, and it's not it's not the best piano, but I have to sit there and try to sound like a rock band. So you can kind of hear my attempt at that actually in that video.
Well, I was going to say something about that. It's because that piano, that single piano, has a lot of power just in that little rehearsal video.
Yeah. If you play it right.
And shout outs to those actors, Chloe Angst, Amy Soriano Pelagi, Haley Lovgren, and Sharon Lita. Just as you could tell, powerhouse voices, and a great show all around. This has been so much fun, Katie. Anything else that you would like to add? Any stories that popped up? Any memories? Anything you'd like us to know about the life of a music director?
Well, I do have to say, as soon as I worked at City Lights, I just felt like I was home there. And even though I've done only 2 shows there, it is such a great theater. And Lisa is a dear friend of mine. I'm so, and LIZZIE is what brought us together. And I think also another thing that I appreciated so much about that was George was the first sound designer that I'd ever worked with who felt like a partner or music director. Like he felt like he was my assistant music director. I trusted him because he's a fellow musician. So I really trusted him to be my ears out there and to give music feedback. And he actually even set up a keyboard backstage and like played along to one of our performances. I don't know if anyone knows that, but he just loved the show so much. And I think everyone involved was just so happy to be there. And there were many late nights just envisioning what we could do with that show, and it just made me feel like that was my theatrical home. So I feel so grateful to have done that and to have met all of you guys.
Oh, that's wonderful. Katie's referring to George Basaras, who's our sound designer and resident composer and actor, and Lisa Millette, who is our executive artistic director. Lisa is usually here with us tonight. She's sorry she couldn't, but tonight is the first rehearsal of our next play, Waiting for Next, by Jeffrey Lowe. So, and that's actually the perfect segue, because when we come back, the next broadcast for this series, for the next stage, it's a lot of words next. I'm saying the word next like 15 times. Our next broadcast on the next stage will be about Waiting for Next. And we're still juggling schedules, trying to figure that out, but we will have our 2 actors, Wes Cabrillo and Max Takis, and our directors, Leslie Martinson. It's a brand new play about a lifelong friendship between 2 boys, grow up to be 2 men. And the playwright Jeffrey Lowe wrote it for these actors. So I'm looking forward to getting that on the schedule. We'll have everybody on for that one. And I think that's it for tonight. Katie, thank you so much. I was gonna say it's a pleasure to see you in person, even though it's not, but it sort of feels like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
A
so
lot of
much.
fun.
So happy to be here.
And we'll have this up on YouTube within the week. So feel free to watch it if you missed the beginning and you want to see it all. Yeah, some nice thank yous coming up in the chat. So nice to see you, Katie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening, and we hope to see you back at the theater soon. Good night.